Marche? Yes. Bonjour. Good morning. We are starting, so please take your seats.
Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the global workshop on the use of new technologies and innovations for monitoring, assessment, and data sharing in transboundary basins. I'm happy to be moderating the first opening session of the workshop. My name is Anna-Stina Heiskanen. I'm the co-chair of the working group on monitoring and assessment under the UN Water Convention. I'm also from the Finnish Environment Institute as my background. We have been organizing this workshop, of course, together with the Secretariat in cooperation with Finland and Senegal, our co-chair next to me. With that, I would like to invite Mr. Markus Heidemann, who is the Deputy Permanent Representative of the World Trade Organization and other economic organizations in the permanent mission of Finland in Geneva. And Mr. Heidemann will say the opening words for behalf of Finland for this workshop. So please, Markus.
Onko tämä nyt on? Okay, now it's on. Thank you, Anna-Stina, my fellow Finn. Honorable Deputy Minister, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and a very warm welcome to you all. It's a great pleasure to open this global workshop focused on new technologies and innovative approaches for monitoring, assessment and data sharing. From Finland's perspective, reliable data and the open sharing of information are not technical details. They are the fundamental basis for collaboration, trust and just decisions between riparian states. Without shared high-quality data, it is very difficult to build confidence, manage joint water resources fairly or respond effectively to risks affecting water quantity and quality. And this is precisely why this workshop is so important. Its objective to take stock of emerging technologies that can improve data acquisition, interpretation, and the practical use of monitoring results goes to the heart of transboundary water cooperation. New tools can help us move from fragmented or uneven information toward a shared understanding of the state of our waters, supporting science-based decisions that serve all parties. Finland is excited to participate in and support this important event, and I want to thank the Secretariat of the UN Water Convention for all the preparatory work. Finland's strong focus on data and transparency is rooted in a long history of engagement in transboundary water cooperation. For over 6 decades, Finland has contributed to the development and application of international water law, from the Helsinki Rules in 1966 to the ratification of both global water conventions, the 1992 UN Water Convention signed in Helsinki and the 1997 UN Water Courses Convention. Since 1992, we have remained an active and committed participant in the convention's work. Today, Finland continues this engagement as co-chair of the working group on monitoring and assessment, together with Senegal. In fact, water diplomacy is one of the 2 main areas of cooperation between Finland and Senegal, so it's very high on both agendas. We have been pleased to help guide recent work on updated strategies for monitoring and assessment and on good practices for data sharing in transboundary basins. efforts that reflect our conviction that shared data is essential for trust, cooperation, and effective governance. Finland also chairs the Water, Energy, Food, Environment Nexus Task Force. A Nexus perspective for further reinforces the need for coherent cross-sectoral data, enabling us to understand interlinkages, trade-offs, and synergies, particularly where impacts cross national borders. Looking ahead, Finland, together with Zambia, will co-chair the interactive dialogue number 4 on water for cooperation at the 2026 UN Water Conference. There we aim to advance tangible outcomes, including broader participation in the Water Convention and new transboundary water agreements, supported by credible shared knowledge and data. Finland's experience shows clearly that transboundary cooperation is a win-win solution. It delivers concrete benefits also for upstream countries, including economic development, reduced flood and drought risks, and cleaner waters over the long term. Finally, I'm happy to remind you all of the networking reception hosted by my ambassador, the Ambassador of Finland, Her Excellency Heidi Skrodarus-Fox, tomorrow evening at the Finnish residence. The weather forecast is a bit on the rainy side, but that will only give us material for a wide range of hydrometeorological chit-chat and jokes. Thank you, and I wish you a productive and inspiring workshop. Welcome tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Markus, for the Finnish opening. And next, I would like to give the word to Mr. Bagari Fati, who is the Director of the Ministry of Hydraulics and Sanitation from Senegal, and he is also the Bureau member and co-chair of the Working Group on Monitoring and Assessment. Please, Mr. Fati.
Thank you, Anna. Merci.
Thank you.
Bonjour à tous.
Good morning, everybody. Director of the Division of Environment and Forests. And the advisor for environmental issues from the EU delegation to Geneva. Madam Secretary of the Convention, ladies and gentlemen, ministers, deputy ministers, co-chairs of the working group. Ladies and gentlemen, representatives of international organizations and dear partners, distinguished guests. It's an honor for me and a real pleasure to take the floor as Director of Hydraulics and Sanitation Management and the Working Group on Surveillance and Evaluation. I would like to first and foremost thank the organization for holding this important workshop, which is a sign of our joint commitment. And this by virtue of technological innovations and approaches. As the background note highlights, today we are going through a turning point where technologies are offering an unprecedented opportunity to improve surveillance, oversight, and data sharing. Ladies and gentlemen, in a context marked by the growing changes and climate change, demographic pressure, and growing need for water, the issue of statistics and data is core, because without reliable shared access, we cannot have good governance for water or efficient cooperation across states. Findings are clear. Many countries are still facing significant shortcomings or gaps in data and interoperable systems, and they have weak technical capacity. You'll agree with me that these challenges today are a major obstacle to the achievement of the SDG 6.6.2. In the face of this reality, new technologies offer a real opportunity for change. I think of telematics and the automatic stations, and also satellite imagery and artificial intelligence to avoid or predict extreme weather events. And also there's the platform for data sharing in real time. Nevertheless, allow me to state strongly that technology itself is not enough because it is based on three key pillars. First, trust between states. Secondly, we need to have robust institutional frameworks and political will. This is why the convention that I have the honor to serve as the second vice chair is a universal framework. It reminds us that data sharing is not a choice, it's a duty. And it is a strategic driver to try to conserve our water resources. Ladies and gentlemen, Senegal, through the Directorate for Management of Hydraulic Resources, is fully committed to this dynamic. We have undertaken the modernization of our system with the setting up of automatic hydraulic stations, the bolstering of the early warning system, and developing early or innovative systems to try to improve the availability and accessibility of data. That being said, above and beyond the national efforts, we are also deeply convinced that the future of water management is in the trans-border basins. This is why we need to bolster partnerships across states, scientific institutions, and technological players, and invest to a greater extent in capacity building and to try to find appropriate solutions to local realities. You'll agree with me that this workshop must be more than just a talking shop. This needs to be an accelerator for future innovation and help to contribute to strengthened transboundary cooperation, because we need to face these challenges. Are we going to anticipate challenges through knowledge and innovation? Because through knowledge and synergy and transboundary cooperation, we can make the right choice and take the right steps to have optimum impact for our people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much.
I would like to invite Ms. Itziar Chavarri Ureta who is the Council of Environmental Issues from the delegation of the European Union in Geneva. Please.
Good morning, Excellencies, distinguished co-chairs, Director of Environment Division. It is a real pleasure to be able to address you today on this workshop, which touches on a very important matter dealing with achieving the related goals and targets of the Sustainable Development Agenda, notably in the transboundary context. As we know, climate change, population pressures, pollution, and competing demands are testing the resilience of our water system across Europe and beyond. No country is spared of this. In this context, digitalization is a critical enabler of smarter, more adaptive water management. Last June, the European Union adopted its water resilience strategy, which addresses the multiple and interlinked water challenges we are facing and recognizes the economic and social importance of water resilience. This water strategy places a strong emphasis on efficiency, sustainability, and innovation. A key pillar to achieve the transformation we're looking for is the rapid emergence of new technologies for monitoring and assessment. Advanced sensor networks are enabling continuous and real-time monitoring of water quality and quantity. Earth observation programs, such as the European Union Copernicus program, provide high-resolution satellite data that can track droughts, floods, and pollution events across entire river basins. At the same time, artificial intelligence is enhancing predictive capabilities, helping authorities anticipate the risks, optimize operations, and make evidence-based decisions. Other innovations, such as smart meters, are helping to detect leaks in urban systems and autonomous drones are used for checking infrastructure. One of the key action plans of the European Water Resilience Strategy is the adoption of a digitalization action plan by the end of this year, which aims to promote the deployment of water solutions such as smart metering and unblock the potential of Earth observation. This strategy also gives special importance to research and innovation as one of its key priority areas. The Commission, for example, is now working on a research and development strategy and the creation of an EU Water Academy. Shared waters demand shared solution. Digitalization can provide a common language through harmonized data, shared platforms, and transparent information exchange. This will strengthen trust, support coordinated responses, and improve joint assessment of risks. However, technology alone is not enough. We need to ensure that digitalization is inclusive, that data governance frameworks are robust, and that investments reach all regions. The EU stands ready to share its experience and support this transformative process, including in the transboundary context, where cooperation is both the greatest challenge but also the greatest opportunity. To conclude, I would like to thank the Secretariat and the co-chairs for their efforts and for their great work in putting together the workshop, and wish everyone a very successful meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next, I would like to invite Ms. Bala Deda, who's the Director of the Environment and Forest Division in the UNEC. Please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, everybody. First of all, let me welcome you all here, so numerous. I have to say it's really a pleasure to see a full room, because this really shows the importance you attach to the topic. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished colleagues, partners, and friends, it's really a pleasure to welcome you to this workshop. New technologies are reshaping water management, and we have an opportunity to channel this innovation to bring real positive changes in transboundary water cooperation. The key questions for policymakers and practitioners who have been devoting their lives to water are simple. Will new technologies help address real, most pressing challenges we face? Will this give us better water data? Will they bring down the cost of monitoring and assessing water resources and make these processes easier? These answers are not necessarily straightforward. Low access to technologies, lack of training can present huge barriers to their adoption. Moreover, new technologies can be expensive and their environmental impact can be significant. Think about the energy and water requirements of data centers, for example. How do we find the right balance then? The speed at which technologies are developing can also feel overwhelming, and it's hard to keep track of innovation. Stay informed. So let me invite you to think about this workshop as a moment of exchange, dialogue, and brainstorming. Essentially, the workshop today and tomorrow aims at grounding the conversation to the real needs of countries and basin organizations, to the most pressing issues we face in transboundary basins. Monitoring and assessment of water resources are complex processes. Reducing their cost is a top priority, particularly for least developed ones, who are also those who most often lack access to technology. So we must start from there. What do we really need? For example, new technology can help us with better data, satellite monitoring for real-time, basin-wide observation, more accessible, transparent data, low-cost sensors, and open data platforms that are easy to use. These and many more innovations are being tested, applied, and adopted around the world, and we will hear some of these experiences today. Our conversation will focus specifically on transboundary basins, where we have more critical questions to discuss. How do we scale new technology across the borders? And can we even use new technologies to improve the way we cooperate on water management? Can we improve data sharing? Water disasters, pollution, and the frequency of extreme events continue to rise, and governments cannot solve these issues alone. We need smooth and strong cooperation. What may really help, for example, are predictive analytics that make early warning and risk forecasting across the borders more effective, and new tools that strengthen data integration to facilitate joint decision-making. Then, after development, these technologies must be deployed, scaled, and transferred effectively, which requires political will, trust, and a benefit-sharing mindset. Strong agreements mandated institutions. Tomorrow's discussion will focus on these crucial aspects, which brings me to the UN Water Convention, of course. For those who are new to it, the Water Convention is a globally legal and intergovernmental framework for transboundary water cooperation, serviced by UNECE. Data exchange and joint monitoring at the heart of the Convention's obligations and early areas of work, which why we organize this workshop today and tomorrow, and the working group on monitoring and assessment on Thursday, as you know. Globally, 59 countries are parties to the convention and 20 are in the process of accession. And I encourage all countries to join this unique instrument, ideally by the time of the 2026 United Nations Water Conference, which will be a landmark event for global water cooperation and multilateralism. Lastly, we must not forget that behind technology there is us, humans, and I'd like to make another important reflection on this aspect. According to a recent UNECE study, the lack of trained professionals is a serious challenge in water sector. In Eastern Europe and Caucasus, national water departments are 35% below the staffing levels needed to carry out their mandates. The workforce is aging, and water-related jobs are not popular among young professionals. Now, this has to change, and it can change. Besides data, we need knowledge to flow, experience to be shared, and fresh ideas to travel across borders and across the globe. With this, let me thank our partners, the European Union, the main donor of this workshop, Finland and Senegal for their leadership, and our technical partners, Jeff IW Learn, the International Network of Basin Organizations, the International Water Management Institute, the Joint Research Center, UNEP's Global Environment Monitoring System for Freshwater, the World Bank, and the World Meteorological Organization. This alliance, which rose with the global community of practice of the Water Convention, brings together the best knowledge available in water technology, policy, cooperation, and investments. Let's make the most of it today and tomorrow. So with this, I thank you all, and also allow me just one sentence to thank the staff of the Water Convention, because since I joined, I'm more and more impressed with their work and their commitment and their professionalism. So I really need to, I have the duty and pleasure of thanking them for all their work. So thank you so much, and see you around.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Paola. And next, we will have the high-level opening. Mr. Hussein Abdullah Baka, who is the Deputy Minister from the Ministry of Water Resources from Iraq. Please, Mr. Baka.
Microphone, please, for the speaker. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Our ministry looks at monitoring, assessment, and exchange of data in transboundary basins as an essential matter, namely because Iraq, as a downstream country, is impacted by what is happening in the Tigris and Euphrates, namely in terms of resources, expanding usages, or change or deterioration of water quality. Data for our ministry are not merely numbers, but basis for decision making, management of the resources, and to be ready in cases of drought or scarcity or floods, as well as our discussion with the co-riparian states. The more accurate data we have, the more able we are to understand the problem and the options that are available to us. We think that data sharing, if done in a transparent and regular way, could be an entry point to build confidence between co-riparian states and to turn the issue of shared water from a point of tension to a point of larger cooperation based on shared interests. We develop our tools in terms of monitoring, assessment, and data sharing, and we are relying more and more on digital data, GIS, remote sensing, and hydrological modeling. We have developed in partnership with UNDP a system to monitor the basins of the Tigris and Euphrates through the National Center for Water Management Resources. We have gathered data, engaged in forecasting systems, and we have also been following water resources indicators of drought and floods in a more accurate manner. In the framework of our program to modernize strategic management of water resources and lands in Iraq, we are working on shared data on water management, land management, and others. These tools are very important for us because they serve not only internal planning but also support our technical positions when we engage in dialogue with co-riparian states through indicators and analytical outputs. We also follow up the use of satellites, drones, AI when it comes to monitoring basins, drought indicators, water quality, and others. In this context, we can also benefit from some national research projects, such as projects by the Bosra University that used AI and drones in order to monitor pollutants and to monitor the quality of the water, as well as other research efforts under the mandate of the ministry. In this context, the framework agreement between Iraq and Turkey signed in 2024 constitutes a step that we can build upon by enacting constant technical channels, promote data sharing, and discuss joint projects based on the principles of cooperation, good neighboring relations, and shared management of risks. Finally, we would like to express our gratitude to the Secretariat of the Water Convention and all the donor and supporting countries and entities, and we hope that this workshop will enable us to use new and modern technologies in the field of monitoring and assessment and data sharing, and we hope also that this workshop will constitute a real step towards a more sustainable cooperation. Thank you for listening to my statement.
Thank you very much for your opening words, Mr. Paga. And next, we will have Ms. Sonja Köppel, who is the Secretary of the UN Water Convention, presenting both the Water Convention and also introduction to the workshop, and followed by Erik Arnos, also introducing the objectives of the workshop. So please, Sonja.
Thank you very much, and good morning. It's a pleasure to see so many of you here, and this is really the spirit of the Water Convention, a community of practice, community of countries working together. Some call it even a family of friends, and I hope that we will have this workshop in such a constructive spirit. As you have already heard, as most of you know, the Water Convention is a unique now global legal and intergovernmental framework and platform for transboundary cooperation with 59 parties at the moment, and 18 of them from outside the pan-European region. And I think we have all seen how the globalization of the Water Convention in the last years has really enriched and brought up new topics and also enabled a broader exchanging of experience. And I would like to start also by actually welcoming the 2 new countries who have joined the Water Convention in the last few months, namely Botswana and Jordan. We welcome them among the community of parties, and we will have a real smaller celebration at the Working Group in Idle in October. But it's great to see that there is momentum with countries joining. And we hope that more countries indeed will join, because 20 are in the process of accession, and hopefully some of those will join in before December of this year, before the UN Water Conference, but even afterwards. So on the map here you can see indeed all the countries which have joined in green, and those which are in the process of accession in yellow. And we do hope that the map will soon become even much more colorful. That those of you who are here will use the occasion to speed up the process of accession due to the many benefits which joining the Water Convention has. As it was said by preceding speakers, monitoring, assessment, and data is really a foundation for transboundary water cooperation. And it is often the start of cooperation, because cooperation often starts at expert level, at scientific level, etc. But it's also one of the major challenges and stumbling blocks in transboundary cooperation. We see that even in basins where there has been cooperation ongoing for years and decades, data exchange often still poses a big problem. That's why it's logical that when countries more than 30 years ago negotiated the Water Convention, included the provisions on monitoring and assessment as main part of the Water Convention. So, for example, the Article 4 indeed obliges countries to establish programs for monitoring the conditions of transboundary waters, also at national level. And in Article 6, parties are asked to provide the widest exchange of information as early as possible on issues covered by the provision of the Convention. And then the second part of the Convention is more focused on riparian countries. And for example, Article 11 then asks the countries to establish and implement joint monitoring programs and to carry out joint assessments, because actually by working together, this can even make monitoring, etc., even make more effective. Article 13 also asks the countries to exchange reasonably available data. And in addition, there are other relevant provisions in the Water Convention, such as on early warning, joint early warning, research, and others. And certainly the core of the Water Convention is the obligation to cooperate by developing agreements and setting up joint institutions, river basin commissions, and others. In the framework of the Water Convention, we also provide support to these processes, including with regards to the aspect of data sharing, as you will hear throughout those 3 days. So it was logical that already more than 20 years ago, the parties at that time decided to include monitoring assessment, support to monitoring assessment, data exchange among the program of work of the Water Convention. They established in the early years the working group on monitoring and assessment, which has been meeting many times since then, and which has helped countries to increase awareness of the benefits of monitoring and assessment, but much more importantly also to actually share good practices, experiences, for example, by developing tools and guidelines, which we've also been updating. So for example, you can see the strategies for monitoring and assessment of transboundary rivers, lakes, and groundwaters, which were updated in 2023. And you can find them available in different languages on our website, but also outside in some printed copies. We have also, actually, our colleague Annelies of Eric developed good practices, a publication on good practices and lesson learned in data sharing in transboundary basins, which was published in 2024. And in addition, we've carried out in the past, for example, assessments of transboundary waters in the pan-European region, developed capacity building activities at global, regional, and basin level, and implemented some pilot projects, which you will hear about more in the next 3 days. So all this will be discussed also in more detail on Thursday during the meeting of the Working Group Monitoring and Assessment, which we hope most of you will also attend. And finally, I would like to conclude by just thanking indeed everybody who has been contributing to this work in the last years, including in the UNECE and the Water Convention Secretariat, also Francesca, also other colleagues, and for this workshop particularly very responsible in the Water Convention Secretariat, Eric and Lucia. And I hand over now to Eric to introduce in more detail the workshop in the extrajectic and the program. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks a lot, Sonia. I'm going to follow up on that, but I just want to start by saying that I am so glad to see you all here in the room. It feels like this has been a wild ride to get to this point, but now we're here, and we will enjoy the next few days to the full. Building on what Sonia said, I would like to start by following up a little bit on this good practices and lessons learned in data sharing publication, as many case study providers are actually here with us. And even though we celebrated the publication at the last meeting of the parties, in some way this global workshop is a continuation of that celebration. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the case study providers. I believe this is the most comprehensive collection of case studies on data sharing. And it would not have been possible without, obviously, many of you here in the room. Also, as Sonia said, we will have the meeting of the working group on monitoring and assessment. It's very logical that we have the global workshop followed by the working group. The global workshop is like a supernova. We enjoy all these new technologies, innovations, these discussions for the next few days. And then we can continue to the regular work on monitoring and assessment at the working group. And rest assured, the working group on monitoring and assessment will meet regularly, annually. So whatever happens here at the global workshop, this will still feed to the work of the working group. So just a brief context on why we are doing this global workshop. I want to mention SDG Indicator 652 on transboundary water cooperation, which my colleague Julia is coordinating. And here we have found, based on the reporting from parties, that a lack of relevant data and information and difficulties in data and information exchange are key challenges for transboundary water cooperation. In addition, we have identified comparability of data and information and limited spatial coverage as main difficulties to data exchange. So already giving a foundation on why we are here. And then this idea is complemented by the fact that it feels like day by day, new technologies are emerging in our daily lives. And this is also reflected on what is happening in transboundary basins. So we see, for example, how digital twins are being developed, how artificial intelligence is becoming more and more common. And we want to see at this global workshop how all these technological advancements can support monitoring, assessment, and data sharing in transboundary basins. Now, it would be very difficult to do this without partners, and the lead parties here. So I will start again before going to the objectives by thanking Finland and Senegal, my good friends and colleagues with whom we have been developing the workshop, the European Union, who is funding, and particularly all the partners who I'm happy to see in the room: Jeff IW Learn, IMBO, IMI, UNEP, World Bank, and WMO, for making this all possible. But it does not end there. So you will see throughout the next few days that in addition to contributions from the partners, we have several exciting presentations from practitioners, from basin organizations, academia, international organizations. I am quite confident to say that we have the right people in the room to discuss this topic. Objectives. Today, we want to talk about really the priority needs and gaps in monitoring, assessment, and data sharing. So understand what is needed. Then I'd say the core of the workshop is the showcasing of practical and scalable examples of new technologies and innovative approaches. And then tomorrow we talk about how we can maximize the impact of these new technologies and what is needed really for data to flow. So enabling environment, governance, trust, institutional arrangements, financing, etc. Finally, tomorrow we want to look ahead. We want to use all of your knowledge to try to predict the future a little bit, understand where this field is going, what we should focus on, and what could be the main risks. Additionally, obviously, we want to strengthen cooperation. I mentioned all the partners we have in the room. We have all of you country representatives in the room. We want to discuss what we can do together to really maximize the impact of this workshop. And one way we are doing it, we are developing a policy brief on the use of new technologies and innovations. It will be the outcome document of the global workshop. So the key messages, all the main points from the discussions here will feed into this policy brief. In addition, many of you have received a pre-workshop questionnaire, and I would also like to thank for all the responses. We used this to scope a little bit what the situation is on the ground. We will discuss that in the next session. But this questionnaire we will still open for wider dissemination. So now it is the basis for the workshop, but afterwards we will still collect some responses to make the policy brief as comprehensive as possible. And thanks to having Finland and Senegal here, we're also hoping to bring the key messages of the workshop into all these main events that are upcoming this year, including, of course, the 2026 UN Water Conference. That was a long set of objectives. I would personally like to invite you to take full use of this opportunity to explore these new technologies and innovative approaches that will be showcased during the workshop, and really reflect on what is needed to make them work in transboundary basins. Here you have a general idea of the agenda. So as I mentioned, today we talk about the needs as well as this global experience sharing on new technologies. And then thanks to my colleagues at Earthwatch and UNEP, as long as the rain permits, we will have a hands-on citizen science exercise on the shores of Lake Geneva in the evening. Tomorrow, we start with the enabling environment for data sharing and technology uptake, and then talk about the future directions. And again, as mentioned, we're very glad that Finland is hosting a reception at the residence of the ambassador in the evening. And I am aware that not all of you have registered in time, but I have been assured by our hosts that any late registrations are still possible. So I am the man in the room to find in case you still want to join. Please come and find me and we will make it work. And then, as said, on Thursday, we have the great opportunity to continue the discussions at the meeting of the Working Group on Monitoring and Assessment, which has several objectives. One of them is also discussing the UN Water Conference. Finally, many things to remember, but you can find us, colleagues, for more information. We are organizing SDG 652 help desks in a room close by. So this is starting already on lunchtime today and continuing throughout the next few days. Basically, for any kind of help on SDG 652 reporting, our colleagues will be there. This is a great opportunity to ask questions in person. That was that for the general introduction. Thank you. And thank you for all the welcoming remarks and high-level reflection also on my behalf. Anna-Stina.
Thank you very much, Eric and Sonja, for setting the scene why we are here and also all the information that will be provided. So please take this as an opportunity for this understanding and learning about the new technologies and opportunities for us all. With this, I would like to thank all the welcoming remarks, and next we will invite the new panel here to discuss about the linking global indicators and available tools to monitoring, assessment and data sharing in transboundary basins. So continuation for setting the scene for the next 2 days to come. So we are changing the notes, and then I would like to invite Dominique Béraud, please, for Chief Hydrological Monitoring from WMO. Please, could you come here? Thank you. And also Mr. Stuart Warner, the specialist from UNEP Global. Welcome. Environment Monitoring Unit, and also Ms. Patricia Mejias Moreno from Aquastat Coordinator from FAO. Welcome. And also Julia Trombicea, who is the Program Manager and reporting on the SDG indicator for the Water Convention here in UNECE. Okay, so we are all here now and we can begin. So the first, this will go so that there will be first a set of slides where our panel members are invited to tell about the latest findings about the global indicators in their field. And next round after that will be about available tools for monitoring, assessment and data sharing. So we will make 2 rounds of the opening panel sessions. And the first one is over there. So maybe we can start. Yes, and Mr. Dominique Béraud, please, floor is yours.
Many thanks, Mrs. Chair, and good morning, everyone, and thanks for this opportunity. Just a first slide, just to recall that we're talking about SDG 6, and we need monitoring to measure the indicators to see the progress. And this monitoring is done through one of the major activity of the UN Water colleagues, on the integrated monitoring initiative. And we are now in the fourth period of the data drive. So it's quite important to have this year. And DU and Water is preparing the next phase of that initiative. So quite important to gather all the colleagues, especially from the WHO, UNICEF, UNEP, FAO, and probably others, to make sure that we can coordinate all the efforts coming from the countries to get those indicators well measured. We can go to the next, which is maybe a few facts from the WMO side, noting that those SDGs, and especially the SDG 6 on water, are highly influenced by the nature. So climate, water, everything you want. So we cannot have indicator just measuring the output. We need to know the input, which is all what's happening in the hydrological cycle. That's the work of WMO, making sure that countries can have the right approach, right methods to measure the system, to model the system, and then to go to forecast systems. And one of the major outcomes we have, the outputs are among all the reports that WMO is publishing, one being the state of the global climate. Hopefully it's well known from all of you, publishing for years. And we published the one of 2025 this year. I do not go into detail, just to tell that it's a kind of confirmation of the trend we have in climate for quite a long time now. And that we are still in the same situation. And generally speaking, those climate issues we have a huge impact on water. That's why WMO is publishing for a couple of years now the second report you see here, the state of the global water resources. The last edition is 2024 because we need a lot of time to get all the data and modeling ready. We are now in the process of preparing the 2025 to be issued against September, October this year. The major result of that is definitely that it's about variability. There is more and more countries reporting that it's either above normal, under normal, so there is no more statistics or usual climate on water, and that's a key issue. It means that hydrology and hydrological processes, flood, drought, groundwater, soil moisture are less and less predictable. So we need to work on that. And we talked about modeling, AI, all that kind of new solutions that we need, but without data, we are still blind. So we absolutely urgently need to continue the work on the data. And I guess I will stop here. Many thanks.
Thank you very much. And next, Mr. Stuart Warmer, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I think first thing to make clear is that this indicator, SDG indicator 632, is about ambient water quality. So we're talking about the quality of water in our rivers, our lakes, and our groundwater. And we've been implementing this indicator since 2017. And one of the absolute clear messages that comes through the implementation of this indicator is that despite over 120 countries reporting on the indicator, in 2023, there were 2 million water quality measurements were used to report on this indicator, yet only 60,000 of those 2 million came from the lowest income half of the world. This is, of course, a problem for water management. You have no data, we cannot understand very basic trends in water quality over space and time. But what is equally or more so important is if you overlap these same countries that have a lack of capacity to monitor their waters, if you overlap those which are most predicted to be impacted by climate change and population growth, these hotspots emerge. And without this core data, baseline data on understanding what current state our waters are in, understanding how they would change over time with these new impacts, emerging impacts predicted, makes it very difficult to manage. And lastly, one more very important finding that comes through the implementation of this indicator is the need to strengthen the capacity to manage data properly. This is one of the clearest messages that comes through. In the national ministries of water, environment, different ministries, the capacity to manage data is very weak, and huge emphasis needs to be put on this. And this is, of course, a problem at the national level, but especially when you're looking at transboundary waters, which rely on, as a foundation, data sharing and collaboration. This really makes it a key issue that needs to be resolved. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the information of the situation on this indicator and the problems related to the data management especially. Then next one is Ms. Patricia Mejias Moreno from Aquastat, coordinator of FAO on SDG 642, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, everyone. So I'm going to focus on SDG 642, which is the level of water stress, and this is one of the indicators for which FAO is the custodian agency. So the level of water stress, for those who are not familiar with the indicator, is a very simple way to measure what is the pressure that the different economic sectors put on the available water resources. So basically, it compares the water used by agriculture, by industry, by sectors, to the available water resources that a country or a river basin has, discounting the needs for the environment. So we need to calculate this indicator. We also need to know what are the environmental flow requirements. So for this indicator, FAO, through Aquastat, the Global Information System on Water and Agriculture, collects data from countries, from the national focal points every year, and we report on this indicator at national level. And you can see in the map on the upper side that we have a level of water stress by country, but it's the same color for all countries. So one of the key messages and one of the key lessons learned of working on this indicator is that this indicator has no much meaning or is not very practical when we calculate it at national level, because it masks all the diversity within the country. So this is why FAO is working with river basin commissions and authorities to calculate this indicator at river basin level. And one example of this work is in the Senegal River Basin, in which we have worked with the different countries to estimate the level of water stress. And you can see in the lower map of the river basin that we have much more diversity, and we can see where the water stress hotspots are. So with this information, the countries and the river basin authorities can make decisions on how to face this water stress, what are the measures that needs to be taken, and also in which areas and in which sectors we need to take action. We can also measure the different water stress by season. So we know that in the dry season, the situation is different from the wet season. So for doing this exercise, of course, we need more data and we need the cooperation of the different countries to share the data. Otherwise, it's difficult to take decisions and to make decisions on to face water stress. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next, Julia, about the SDG indicator 652, please.
Thank you, Anastina. So the SDG indicator 6.5.2, for which UNEC and UNESCO are the co-custodian agencies, refers to transboundary water cooperation. And why do we need it? Because 60% of the global freshwater flow is in transboundary basins. So the indicator measures the transboundary water cooperation, and in fact, it measures the proportion of transboundary basin areas covered by operational arrangements for water cooperation. Operational arrangements are those where the riparian countries have established formal joint bodies, where they hold regular meetings, where they have established joint objectives, and they regularly exchange data and information. For this indicator, we have a relatively good data coverage. So 143 countries out of 153 United Nations member states who share transboundary waters have reported on this indicator, at least in one of the reporting rounds. We have also seen considerable improvements in data availability for transboundary aquifers. In fact, from the first to the third reporting exercise, the number of countries with the aquifer component available have almost doubled from 65 to 111. However, from the last reporting exercise on the SDG indicator 652, we also know that the transboundary water cooperation is lagging behind. Only 43 countries have very high levels of cooperation. So only 43 countries have 90% or more of their transboundary basin area covered by operational arrangements. And this is certainly not enough. Among the obstacles for transboundary water cooperation, 79 countries named the lack of data and information as the key obstacles. So these obstacles scored highest among the all possible difficulties listed in the 652 template. And when we ask countries what are the top problems for data exchange in transboundary basins, they indicated comparability of data and information and the inadequate resources. So addressing these issues in transboundary basins is really critical, because transboundary water cooperation holds huge potential for climate change adaptation, and it also holds huge potential for the achievements of many SDGs, be it the SDGs on health, energy, water, food, land, and ecosystems. Back to you, Anastina.
Thank you very much, Julia. And now we will have the second round of the slides and presentations, and next about the available tools for monitoring and assessment of these SDG indicators. And let's start again from Dominique Viro from WMO, please.
I think you can click until you have the full picture. Just to recall that we are talking about hydrology, which is one of the most complex natural systems we have. It's still very much unknown at every temporal and spatial scale. And if you want to be a good hydrologist, you can check on the left side how many education you need to get. It's impossible for one single person to have all that knowledge. We need to work together. We need to be together to join forces to really understand what's happening with that hydrological cycle. It's non-linear, it's complex, it's interconnected, and it's unknown. And as I said earlier, climate is moving all those different variables. And we need to work at all scales, basin scale, national scale, local scale, and global scale as well. So it's a huge effort we have to do together. And there is obviously no political boundaries to hydrological cycles. So we have to work together for all these reasons. And dialogue is needed among scientists and between scientists and society, and decision makers and all the stakeholders. And to get that dialogue working, we need a common language and to share the same knowledge. And it's all based on facts. And actually, if we are measuring data, it's because we need those facts. So without those, we have no possible dialogue. And so again, we heard that earlier, data are most needed, not only to be collected, but as well to be shared. And that's where WMO is quite strong. It's one of the core mandates we have, first to make sure that country can collect data and then must share data. And this is true with the new unified data policy that WMO approved in 2021, where all the 193 countries are committed to share at least those data that can save lives. We're talking about meteorology, climatology, chorosphere, and obviously hydrology. We're now in the process of identifying those key core variables for hydrology that countries must be sharing very soon. We have a decision of the Intergovernmental Commission coming in November this year, so stay tuned. you will see the list. It's those data that really can save lives and can inform the whole process of the SDG, by the way. So a list of data will be core, need to be shared, and another list, larger, will be recommended. Good to share because you can better understand the system and enter that kind of dialogue. So WMO is providing this policy and all the technical tools that allow real-time data sharing, long-term data sharing for this. And it's very important. So it's obviously to share data, we need data. So I just want to insist on that. We need to improve altogether that effort in collecting, managing data on the longer term. And this workshop then is very important because why doesn't it work? I mean, we all know the water challenges. We all know the need in infrastructure. And we all know that data collection is a small, not even a % of the costs. So why doesn't it work? So yes, we need to be more effective in data collection, management, and sharing. Yes, we need to be more acute with us. On this workshop is a quite important step to gather together to see what are the options and to work on that. You will hear from many partners later that there are solutions, but we have to implement them in an effective way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next, we will have Stuart Warner, please.
Situation I made clear in my earlier intervention. Just to make clear that UNEP's GEMS water program has been in existence since the 1970s, yet still there is this huge data gap. On the slide here, you can see some of our tools which we have progressed to try and improve this situation. You can see the link here to GEMStat, which is UNEP's water quality database, and that has over 55 million water quality records in there at the moment, and it's growing regularly. Also, there's a link to the SDG Water Quality Hub, which is our main platform for everything to do with SDG Indicator 632. So you can review the latest results and identify different capacity gaps in terms of monitoring, for example, from lakes or rivers or groundwaters on there, and see some of the trend data. Earth observation has huge potential, and there are many very good products out there at the moment. Right now, we are working to develop a new one specifically for SDG Indicator 632 and 661, which is on freshwater ecosystem extent. The potential for Earth observation, we will hear a lot more about over this next couple of days. But the one innovation and tool that we've really been pushing is, over the last few years, is around citizen science. And the benefits of citizen science for water quality monitoring go far beyond just the ability to collect data and to fill data gaps. It has huge benefits in forging the connection and improving engagement with local communities who are not only most impacted by poor water quality, but also are best placed to improve water quality and to manage water quality. And often, as you can see in this picture from one of our projects in the transboundary Mara River Basin, those living either side of an international border may have very much more in common with each other than those maybe of the same country, yet live very far away. So it provides a very good opportunity for communities to come together and to work for their collective river basin. And through this work, we've lots of different projects going on in different countries, but one of the world leaders on integrating citizen science data with ministry-led monitoring, and that's the approach that we are promoting, is with us today in Sierra Leone. And their efforts over the last number of years have been emulated in many other countries. And they are just one of two countries, Sierra Leone and Zambia are the other country, who have used citizen science generated data for reporting on this indicator. But we'll hear more about that. We have a session later today, and we invite you also to join the session this evening after the main thing on citizen science. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, Patricia, please.
Thank you. So I would like to focus on 3 practical tools that can be useful for countries. The first one is the Aquastat information system. So Aquastat exists since 1994. And through the system, we collect data from countries. So the data which are published in Aquastat are official. When the country doesn't report, we have estimations and imputation of the data. So in the Aquastat database, you can find information on the availability of water resources, the different water uses, not only of agriculture, but also the industrial and service sector, and also the SDG 6.4 indicators. Aquastat has data of 193 countries and territories from 1961 to 2023. Inside the information system, you can also find the water resources accounting profiles. So this is using statistical information. This is an accounting of how much water a country has. So it shows the internal water resources, but also the external water resources coming from other countries. And also there are some transboundary river basin profiles that were done long time ago and that we would like to update in collaboration also with transboundary river basins. We also have, specifically for SDG 642, the level of water stress, we have developed a specific methodology for the disaggregation at river basin level, and also a practical tool to calculate the level of water stress. That is also available in the FAO website. And then finally, FAO has developed a remote sensing platform, which is called Vapor, which uses satellite data to monitor water productivity in agriculture. So if you enter in the platform, you can have a calculation of the agricultural water consumption and also the internal renewable water resources. So these are 3 tools that are practical and that can be used by country or by river basin authorities to get data. This presentation is very short, but if you are interested in knowing more about one of these 3 tools, we are available for providing more information. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next, final, Julia.
Thank you. So for the SDG indicator 652, I would like to highlight a tool which is very relevant for cooperation on transboundary aquifers, where we generally have less information and less developed cooperation than in the case of the river and lake transboundary basins. So this is the recently updated transboundary aquifers of the world map prepared by the International Groundwater Resources Assessment Center and the UNESCO's Intergovernmental Hydrogeological Program. So this new edition of the map synthesizes the findings from the various specific aquifer and regional aquifer assessments. It also reflects the most up-to-date information on transboundary aquifers and the knowledge about transboundary aquifers, and it also can support member states in planning their cooperation on these resources. I would also like to draw your attention to the guidelines and tools developed under the Water Convention, namely the practical guide on the development of agreements and other arrangements, which supports countries in actually drafting the arrangements which would be later operational, and also several tools which we have produced in the area of monitoring and assessment, such as the updated strategies on monitoring and assessment, which help countries develop step-by-step approaches and strategic approaches to this area of work, and also the good practices on data sharing that Eric has already advertised earlier on today. What is important is that the Water Convention not only develops these tools, but it also helps helps countries to apply them on the ground through specific projects. And on one of the pictures on this slide, you can see the recent training on hydromorphological monitoring in the Tsjevna-Tsemi river basin shared by Albania and Montenegro, where countries have actually applied the updated strategies to the development of their monitoring capacities. And on the other picture, you can see the negotiations on the Senegal-Mauritanian Aquifer Basin Agreement, where countries are using the practical guide development of agreements in order to develop this new arrangement through a cooperative process. And now let me conclude this joint presentation of the 4 agencies. So as already mentioned by Dominic in the very beginning, the integrated monitoring initiative on SDG 6 is now conducting the 4th data drive. So all your countries are invited to report on most of the SDG indicator 6 indicators this year. You can see the different deadlines for our indicators on the screen, with the 652 coming first, and then the 642 coming in September, and the 632 deadline coming end of October. We very much encourage you at national level to engage and collaborate across the focal points for these different indicators. Of course, reporting is done at national level, but at the same time, you can also consider working together also with your neighbors when you prepare the data for your river, lake, and aquifer basins, because this can be done when preparing your data, when preparing your reports, and also you can use this process in order to analyze data and build on the results in order to strengthen cooperation on the rivers, lakes, and aquifers. Thank you very much. Back to you, Anastina.
Thank you very much for this tour of setting the scene of the international indicators, SDG indicators that we are compiling, and where the information from your river basins and shared river basins will also contribute for our common knowledge and benefit of the water resources and water quality management. So thank you very much. Applause for our experts. And with this, I will complete the opening session, and we are a little bit delayed, which I have to apologize, of course, but let's go on for the next, the first session of the workshop, Priority Needs and Gaps in Monitoring, Assessment and Data Sharing. And with this, I would like to invite Edouard Bonnet, head of the project from INBO, to the podium. We can go now.
Hello, everyone. Before we start, may I ask all of the speakers that I invited to join on stage to bring their nameplates? Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Edouard Bonnet. I work as head of project for international cooperation at the International Network of Basin Organizations. And I have the pleasure to moderate this session number 1 on priority needs and gaps in monitoring, assessment, and data sharing. First of all, I would like to thank our 2 state and member parties that have supported the organization of this workshop, Finland and Senegal, as well as Eric from the Secretariat of the Water Convention that have provided all of the preparation process for this workshop. It has been mentioned at the beginning of this opening ceremony, we cannot manage what we cannot measure. It's really important to make sure that we invest in monitoring networks and that we make the best of the combination of new technologies with more classic techniques of monitoring, assessment, and data sharing. We will discuss during this first sessions the needs and gaps. And in order to do that, I will first give the floor to Mr. Omero Paltan from the University of Oxford for a presentation on the common challenges and trends finding from the SDG indicator 6.5.2, and also presenting some of the first results from a questionnaire that has been shared with you all in preparation for this workshop. Mr. Omero Paltan, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. And as Eric was mentioning before the workshop, we shared with you a questionnaire where many of you were so kindly fill it in, and we have actually very interesting results. So what I'm going to be sharing or presenting over the next few minutes is some of these preliminary results of what we actually have found out from the questionnaire. Again, some very interesting results. Just to open in the stage here, it's going to be a short presentations with a few slides over here. So first of all, who responded to this questionnaire? So essentially, we have about 80% of national authorities and about 10% of river basin organizations, and we also have some international organizations that have also contributed to this questionnaire. From a geographic point of view, also we have very interesting contributions. About half of the respondents are from Africa. We also have roughly 20% that are coming from Latin America, 16% from Europe. Central Asia, we have about 10%. Here, just as a footnote, that we just did not have really a high number of participants from Asia and in general Central Asia. So all of the findings that I'm going to be presenting about this region perhaps are not really representative. And from the Middle East and Northern Africa, we also have 7% of participants. And what it tells us is that essentially we cannot really dictate or we cannot really shape one global policy, obviously, because the results are regionally different. So that means that we have to really tailor the type of strategies that we can think of at first at a regional or geographic level, but also things become much more interesting. Just to navigate much more what people were telling us, especially in Africa and in Central Asia, as I was mentioning before, Central Asia, we had a very limited number of participants. But in any case, in these two regions, the main operational constraints that we identify or challenges is indeed the lack of observations or the need of data that needs to be collected. More interestingly, in Latin America, as we move from observations, perhaps in the next step in the chain is the need to exchange, or the challenge to exchange data, or the challenge is much more profound when we're talking about how this data is flowed. So data is there, but perhaps it's not circulating very well. And then in Europe, for example, we identified that the main challenge is about communication and uptake. So in this case, observations exist, perhaps data is already being flowed or data is already being exchanged. But then in Europe, there is a limitation or a challenge in terms of how this data is actually being communicated and what's the actually final uptake. So again, this flow is interesting, I guess, I think to communicate and that we were able to identify. Some other important and interesting results that we found from the questionnaire is that first that we identified that perhaps the data, the technologies that you responded could be split into three types of categories. So first of all, we detect that what is being operational, what is already in place at most is in situ the monitoring instruments, as well as forecasting and early warning systems. What's been partially adopted, what perhaps is not really, it's just being stuck at the piloting stage. We have innovations or tools such as shared database, remote sensing, and geospatial platforms. And what's not being in use actually are automated exchange, AI and machine learning, and also digital twins. So what this is telling us is that essentially sometimes it's not really much about the type of technologies that we have because they're there, but also how mature they are in terms of in their uptake. So again, it's not just about having the tool, but also how or an innovation, but also how they are used. From a much more practical point of view, also it's interesting to find that when river basin organizations are actually involved, we have a much more or a much higher increase in the uptake versus national organizations. Also, we identify that citizen science is, of course, operational, is something that is very useful and is something that is much more helpful for non-high income or for non-high income countries. Then also to move forward, also the types of data that we are actually needing, or what's actually what we want and what we need. First of all, it's important to identify is the most important critical gap that we identify is groundwater data in terms of course, the levels and abstraction. This is much more critical for arid and semi-arid regions. Second in place, we also have water quality, and also very importantly, we also have sediment and erosion. Again, these are the data needs that the respondents identified. Then in terms of when we also identify how could AI help us to essentially move forward, what was very interesting then here is to find that AI is seen as a tool that essentially can help us to automate quality control and also anomaly detections. That's again one of the primary uses of or identified promising uses of AI. So in general, something that is much more operational, right? And then the emerging technologies that are most needed, it's interestingly to identify also that advanced Earth observation is the primary candidate. This is perhaps, of course, Earth observation do not really necessitate advanced, let's say, data sharing mechanisms between countries or between catchments. So it's something that is much more straightforward to use. And then also what we identify is that even when data platforms and when data exists, also the data exchange remains limited. So when platforms exist, we identify that just 16% of respondents have a shared database. So that are actually exchanging this data. So again, even if the platform exists, just 16% of respondents are actually exchanging this data. And about a third of respondents, 27%, are actually reporting that there is no automated data exchange in place. So again, there's a gap here. There's a bridge that we have to fill in between the existence of a platform of tools and innovations and actually how data is flowing. So there's a bridge here that we have to fill in. And that bridge is actually, or we identify that it's or this missing layer is actually governance, that it could be built up with mandates, trusts, standards, and share ownership. And this is exactly related to the way that you responded to this, to why this gap is there. So about half of the participants identify that there's insufficient human or financial resources, that there's a difference in terms of the methods that are used to assess quality of data and quality control. 40% of responded that there is a lack of agreed data and metadata standards, and in general, several important institutional and governance constraints here. So again, what we're trying to say is that technology is not really here the silver bullet that actually is needed here, but actually it's the governance mechanisms that need to be need to be put in place. And also in terms of the main challenge that was identified is also the need of sustainable finance or financing that is still be seen as a critical gap, as a critical element. But it's not as simple as that. It's not just about a matter of financing, because financing also depends on the type of context we're talking about. So in contexts where we have few or no operational technologies, so that means 0 or up to 2 technologies just in place, apart from financing, there are also important governance conditions that need to be put in place. So for example, legal and institutional mandates. We also need to strengthen trust and cooperation. So again, when we don't have very mature, let's say, type of technological landscapes, the governance landscape is tremendously important. On the other hand, when we have context with much more mature technological portfolios, so that means up to 6 technologies already in place, apart from financing, we're talking here much more about the need to strengthen technical capacities, right? So in this case, it becomes less than a governance problem, but perhaps something much more technical, something much more operational. And just to conclude, just to finalize this quick review, we also ask you to share with us some of the interesting experiences or some of the interesting local experiences, so for us to identify what's working or what's not really working. And the pattern that is important to identify is that technologies actually kick off, that technologies actually play a significant role when there's a concrete operational need. That means that when countries agree on an operational challenge, technologies kick off rather than just let's say, cloudy type of aspiration, right? Pilots that did not really scale, as we identify in some of the examples, is not just because of the technical limitations, but also, as we were reviewing before, because of the post-project type of financing or the sustainability of financing, but also of the lack of institutional ownership in this type of pilots. And just to wrap up, just to mention here, as you perhaps are seeing on these panels that I have here, is that there's a consistent lesson here, that it's basically that apart from the technical or the scientific credibility of tools, there are also other types of elements that essentially help us to adopt or to widespread adoption of these type of tools. That is institutional embedding, that we have a very clear identification of who owns the tool, but also that there's an operational reason at the end, right? That makes essentially a practical the data, the sharing that we want to put in place. And just wanted to wrap up this very short presentation here, and just to reemphasize that if you want to share with us much other experiences, and if you want to participate in this questionnaire, you can still fill this questionnaire in. So I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Homero. Well-deserved round of applause for this insightful first results of the questionnaire for the workshop. We do indeed encourage you to keep replying to this survey in order to make it even more comprehensive. Maybe 3 key messages that I'll take from that. There is a geographical aspect to it, from data gaps in Africa and Asia to gaps in data exchanges in Latin America, and gaps in the uptakes of solid existing data collection networks in Europe. You've also mentioned that groundwater in particular is a data that we are missing the most, and that for the uptake of technologies, there's the financial aspects, of course, and maybe the FAIR principle of fundable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable is of interest in that perspective. And we could mention the fact that one of the technologies that have had the most uptake, Earth observation, might receive that level of attention precisely because the data collected and special imagery collected through satellites are usually free of access. That makes it a good option to improve data collection. Thank you very much for that, Homero. Now we have the pleasure to have the country perspective on the findings. Of course, the question is, have pushed countries to reflect on their own needs. And on the stage, we have Chile, Kazakhstan, Panama, North Macedonia, Ghana, and Namibia. I'd like to start by giving the floor to Madame Macarena Bahamondes, your head of unit of environment and shared water resources at the National Department of State Borders and Boundaries at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Chile. Could you present your own reaction to this? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Edward. I'm going to do my presentation or my experiences in Spanish. Bueno, de acuerdo a la presentación.
Well, on the presentation given by Romero, I'm going to look at a couple of areas based on Chile's experience. I'm going to look at 2 core factors in the work that we're doing with our neighboring countries. mainly with Bolivia and Argentina. First, it's connected to monitoring. Chile has very good monitoring networks with data that are submitted online, with a broad network that addresses all the water basins. But one of the main gaps that we see currently is how these networks that are designed for a national context can be connected or comply with goals in transboundary work. That's one of the initial gaps we've seen. We've got this broad monitoring network. We need to think about those goals that we are trying to achieve with neighboring countries regarding our hydraulic resources. And then the second gap, as Romero rightly said, is the exchange of data. In terms of data exchange, I need to say that this is at the initial stages. We're working at a round table of hydraulic resources, transboundary resources with Bolivia. And the main thing we need to define here is, well, what's the point of sharing data? What's the goal? What do we want to do? We want to improve quality? Do we want to look at particular channels? Do we want to look at the quality of water and of a particular body of water in particular? And once we have these goals, that will guide us to see what data we need and how we can exchange the data. Now, these are still not fully fledged, they're not fully defined. So that's why I'm explaining that it's a gap that we need to resolve in the short term to then subsequently define what mechanisms we're going to use to share data, whether this will be through databases or interoperable systems through the water directorates in each country, and so on. So I think that ultimately the main point is to try to establish joint goals, joint objectives, and then decide how the monitoring systems can comply with the goals and how we can share our data across those networks. Those are the main points. Thank you. Thank you. And we can see that there's modernization and sharing of data and online updating. And you also heard the call to have a system or an operational need that will lead to the inclusion or the creation of an appropriate kind of tool or technology. Now, staying within Latin America, I'm going to introduce the Ministry for the Environment in Panama. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much, first and foremost, for allowing me to share an oversight of the shortcomings and needs of Panama in terms of monitoring, evaluation, and the management of data and transboundary sources. For Panama, managing transboundary water sources is a strategic priority. We share water resources with neighboring countries, and because of its geographical position, we understand that water cannot be managed from a fragmented point of view or respecting borders. We need to have cross-border cooperation, but to have concrete results, we need to have constant management, trust, technological resources, comparable mechanisms, and we need to look at real benefits for territories, communities, and ecosystems. Panama's experience has shown that one of the main gaps is strengthening a true comprehensive understanding of water. And when we talk about water, it's the water that we can see and that we can't see. So all actors, whether this be institutions, communities, productive industries, and of course, decision makers between Panama, Costa Rica, and Colombia, then we understand better how ecosystems work, how people work, and the natural water cycle. This is a living organism. We need to stop managing water like an isolated resource. We need to understand how it behaves and the connection between surface water, atmospheric water in forests and coasts and inland waterways. Another challenge that we're trying to manage in Panama is the institutional and legal framework. Panama has a legislation that comes from the 70s, and it's still governing the decisions we take today on water. In National Assembly, we're seeing debates on a new water law, and this is a significant leap forward. That being said, we need to achieve consensus on the internal roles of our countries' institutions and those of our neighboring countries, as well as the financial contribution, without losing sight of the social aspect. Another point is monitoring, and I've heard many people mention this today. But the way we monitor needs to be consistent. We need to plan this in a strategic and mindful way. It's not just about data collection, but generating useful information that helps us to understand trends, behavior, anticipate risks, and assess the quality and quantity of water. This means that Panama looks at transboundary cooperation as an opportunity and a responsibility. Our main challenge is to try to ensure that all of our aspirations as a country become reality. Although we have a binational commission with Costa Rica, and we've been working closely for the basin of the Rio Sixola, many times we've seen that we have lost sight of our goal. We need to ensure that our technicians, our technical staff, understand the needs of the country, that they fully understand the surface water and hydrological basins. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Julio. And thank you also for highlighting that it's this challenge of data sharing. It's not just a technical issue. It's also about governance. And we have to understand the institutional and legal scope of that challenge. Thank you very much.
English and give the floor to Mr. Dania Zagadiev, your Director of the Department of International Cooperation at the Analytical Information Center for Water Resources of Kazakhstan. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good morning, dear participants. Hydrological information plays a critical role in the management of transboundary river basins for Kazakhstan. It is fundamental for effective water resources planning, operational decision-making, and ensuring equitable and reasonable water allocation among riparian states. At present, Kazakhstan faces limitation in accessing comprehensive and timely data on water use across Central Asian transboundary river basins. This data gap can become a source of misunderstanding and potential disputes with neighboring countries. Despite these challenges, based on forecast data, we jointly agree on operational regimes of key reservoirs and establish water release schedules for interstate channels. Daily exchange of hydrological information is carried out through specialized hydrometeorological services. However, this mechanism is not sufficient for fully operational and real-time water management. To improve transparency and responsiveness, there is a clear need to establish a joint real-time monitoring system. Such a system would allow all parties to observe actual river flows and at key stations and track reservoirs operation. In this regard, Kazakhstan is currently developing a system jointly with Uzbekistan on critical places of water allocation and hydrological stations. We expect that this initiative can be scaled up in the future to cover the entire transboundary basin. Overall, in this direction, progress is being made. The key priority for us is to strengthen the joint technical cooperation, identify existing gaps in hydrological data systems, and develop coordinated programs for building an efficient and integrated monitoring framework. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We've seen with your own reaction that there is an interest to develop joint monitoring networks, and this definitely helps to build trust between Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. Thank you very much for this feedback. Now I would like to give the floor to Madam Lyubka Zashkov, your Deputy Head of Water Department at the Ministry of Environment and Physical Planning of North Macedonia. You have the floor.
Actually, I would like to thank to the ERIC for very well actually organized the questionnaire, very comprehensive, and the question would pinpoint to the many of the gaps for the monitoring. Actually, this kind of the questionnaire support us to understand and to recognize where is the real gaps in the monitoring in our country. I would like now to explain what is the status of the monitoring, assessment, and the sharing of the data on the Drin River Basin area, like actually sharing the data information between the 5 riparian countries. I will explain this kind of experience because this monitoring system is already established, and what kind of the problems and the gaps we find the all 5 riparian countries I would like to underline. One of the first gap actually it was that the monitoring are not fully aligned between the all countries. Even though the all 5 countries already transposed the European directive, European framework directive for the waters, also groundwater directives and INSPIRE, it seems that way for collecting of the data, way of monitoring, also identification of the parameters, frequency of the monitoring, it's not the same and unique in between all of the 5 countries. That was one of the first gap and the problem what we recognize in the process of establishing of the monitoring system, Drin monitoring system. This actually gap, we recognize that it's important to improve, and in the second stage of the project, we very clear defined the improvements. The second big gap is that the sharing of the data, it's not regular and systematic. What it means? Even that exists the working group, Drin core group, for the sharing of the information and data, it seems the country only share the information and data in the frame of the project. When the project finish, it seems this is not systematically and not actually continuously process for exchange of the data. We find that it's important in the future, in the next phase of the project, to create a very clear protocols of the dissemination of the data and the process to be continuous in the collecting and actually using of the data. The third one problem is gaps in capacity on the especially on the equipment, on laboratory, but also on the people who will be actually manage all the process. We find that most of the methods it's not accredited, and that directly indicate that quality assurance and quality control of the data it's not enough. Also, this kind of the gap, we recognize that will be must improve in the second stage of the project, how to ensure that the collected data, it is appropriate and quality assurance and quality control. The last one, what it's very important that we find that monitoring results are not always fully reflected in the planning process and decision-making process. This is very crucial, and we find that why we create the monitoring data, we create to support the decision process, and that is something what we must underline in the next stage of the project, to be very clear, recognized, but also unified understanding the meaning of the data and using for the successful managing of the monitoring, but not only the monitoring, also exchange of the data between the countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lubska. And we can also take as key takeaway message this point you made regarding projects. It's good to have projects, but if the data sharing ends with the projects, that's an issue. And this idea to set up protocols to ensure data sharing in the long run, and I assume sustainable financial mechanism as well, is also very important. Thank you very much for your feedback. Now I will turn to Mr. Robert Kwanza, Principal Officer from the Water Resources Commission of Ghana. You have the floor.
Thank you for the opportunity to share from Ghana. Ghana has 2 transboundary basins, with the Volta Basin being the major one. There is an existing joint body where projects have been undertaken on early warning systems and climate interventions. However, there exist several more areas for cooperation as we gear towards meeting targets under the SDG 6.5.2. Though Ghana shares data with IDCO riparians, especially Burkina Faso, there are challenges with agreed standards across the riparian countries, creating knowledge gaps. There are ongoing efforts by the Water Basin Authority to build an observatory as a common data repository and sharing scheme. While the Water Basin Charter exists, it is not fully implemented. Therefore, Ghana and its co-reparents need more robust legal frameworks to make data sharing a mandatory, legally binding obligation rather than a diplomatic courtesy. Ghana, through the Water Resources Commission, has prioritized the need for a live data exchange portal that bypasses slow diplomatic channels and a continuous data exchange protocol that allows for daily flow of hydrological information. Most transboundary monitoring is limited to quantity, that's on the flow levels. There is a critical need to focus on quality parameters as well with real-time sensors to detect heavy metal contamination at border entry points. Cross-border impacts of illegal mining activities must trigger joint monitoring and assessments and not just national level action. Monitoring of transboundary aquifers is extremely low, as most in-country groundwater monitoring and assessments are funded through projects and mostly concentrated in the northern part of the country. As we share both surface and groundwater with our neighboring states, Ghana needs a joint automated water quantity and quality monitoring system across our shared basins. In conclusion, we look forward to technical guidance from UNES and financial assistance from our development partners to put in place robust mechanisms to form joint monitoring and assessment systems that will aid in integrated basin-wide water resources management. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robert. I really liked your formula of the need to move away from diplomatic courtesy. In a way, the idea is not to rely just on the goodwill of riparian states, but to make the demonstration that data sharing leads to more effective decision-making, so they have a benefit to share the data. Thank you very much for that. Now I'll give the floor to Mr. Alpheus Moses, Chief Hydrologist at the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Water and Land Reform from Namibia. You have the floor.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to reflect on Namibia's priorities and gaps in transboundary water monitoring and data sharing. Namibia is a semi-arid country. Most of our inland rivers are ephemeral in nature, while our perennial rivers are shared with neighboring countries and form part of our national boundaries. This means that Namibia's water security depends heavily on cooperation with other states. Effective information sharing is therefore critical, especially because none of these rivers, perennial rivers, originate in Namibia, and in most cases, Namibia is downstream. Through our participation in river commissions on our perennial rivers, we have identified several challenges that comes with assessment, monitoring, and data sharing in transboundary basins. Some basins still lack detailed water data sharing agreements, and where agreements exist, monitoring methods, equipments, and technical capacities are not always standardized or harmonized. Countries use different instruments. We have different budget levels and operate at different levels of technical capacity. Another factor that is also affecting or challenging us in our basins is that language barriers, for example, between us and Namibia and Angola, where which can affect timely and effective data exchanges. There have, however, been important successes through our commissions, such as platforms such as ZAMWIS and ZAMCOM, the OCACOM the OCACOM decision support system and RASACOM water information systems have improved basin-level information sharing. However, challenges remains around data availability, data quality, and sovereignties. In some cases, countries still prefer to process and store data nationally before sharing it, selected information on these joint platforms. In conclusion, Namibia's priority is to strengthen a legal framework for data sharing, improve technical capacity to take up new technologies, and mobilize sustainable operational budgets, and promote joint monitoring. These methods are essential for effective transboundary water cooperation and long-term water security for the country. I thank you.
Thank you very much, as well on your insistence on capacity building and training of the professional that will have to manage this combination between classic techniques and technologies of data collection and sharing and new technologies. Thank you very much. That's the end of our session number 1. But that's a very good transition you just made on capacity building for session number 2. That's the job of WMO, supporting member states in developing their capacities, their national hydrometeorological services. And so I would call Mr. Dominique Béraud, our colleague from WMO, to join us on stage and moderate session number 2. Dominique, if you may please join us. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I forgot that. Okay. Okay, so welcome to this. It's not only the second session, it's the last session before the lunch. So let's try to be as effective as possible. I'm happy to call on this panel Salvador Peña. You're here, good. Miguel Polo Sebellan. Daniel Odermatt, long time no see. Daniela Angeleri. Fetisani Ramusia. Claire Williams. And Diego Jara. Are you all here? Yep. Thanks. So welcome to this panel. What we aim to do now is a kind of, we'll do that in 3 parts if time allows. Let's see. So to have a kind of quick lightning talks, 5 minutes top from each of you. And then to have a bit of time of having a panel discussion with a few open questions we might have. And then if time is all, but I hope it will, to have a Q&A session with all of you. So get ready, listen carefully to what will be said, and take notes and come with questions. We like to hear from you. Okay, thanks. So I would say that never further ado, let's start with the first speaker, being Salvador Peña. He's the chair of the WMO Hydro Hub, the think tank. And what's quite interesting, I think he's coming for the private industry as well. Thanks. Salvador, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you. And I want to start by thanking the invitation to this workshop to share our experiences from the WMO Hydro Hub on bringing innovation into operation. So I prepared some bullet points stressing the importance of data, but I guess it's not needed. It has been mentioned many, many times. Actually, I prefer to repeat some of the numbers that we already heard because I found very interesting. So in the morning, it was mentioned that 79 countries reported lack of data as a major challenge. Also, we heard that 37% of countries report data comparability and inadequate resources as a key difficulties. Also, there is a World Bank report which mentions that 66% of developing countries are reporting declining capacities in monitoring. It's not that it's enough, but they are declining. Also has been mentioned several times that there is a need for cheaper technologies. There are many financing challenges and also need of training, capacity building. So the WMO Hydro Hub works on finding solutions to some of these issues. This is done by three main pillars that we have at the Hydro Hub, is to increase capacities, optimize engagements, and also to bring innovation into an operation. And that's a bit what I want to talk at the end of this presentation. So what the Hydro Hub did was what we call the innovation calls. So were small projects that were funded where we invited companies or universities in collaboration with NMHSs to develop new technologies or technologies that they were in an early stage of development to bring them one step further in collaboration with NMHSs, trying to cover the needs that they have in monitoring. As you can see in this map, we try to choose also those different type of innovations, but also differently located, not geographically. So I will just briefly mention them. The first one was well, in Belize, was a machine learning or AI approach for quality control. And then we had in Bhutan, was a data logger, a low-cost data logger. India was a LiDAR system to measure the water level in rivers. And then we have three innovation calls that they were focused on river flow monitoring, and they were based on image technologies. That was one that in Argentina, that was a desktop application to be able to process videos from the water flowing and from there to obtain the discharge. In Tanzania was something similar, but instead of a desktop application was software that runs continuously and can was also put into operation. And in the Fiji Islands, we focus on a stereoscopic camera to automatically detect water level changes and start recording videos to be later on processed. What I want to stress here is that all these innovation calls, one requirement was that they have to be open source. With this, we try to tackle down some of those issues because they are for free, they are available, so they are cheaper to use. And also, but there is some capacity building needed. No? So also we have work on doing workshops and trainings for doing the knowledge transfer. As this was said before, I think it's technologies by themselves don't solve the problem. No, we need also the involvement of the institutions. We need strong institutions. And one of the learnings of bringing these innovations was that also these systems, they are new and they need to be validated. We need to build trust on those systems that they deliver accurate results. But at the same time, since they are open, they can be used by anyone, and we have the same base to monitor. The other one was we still need a lot of work on capacity building and knowledge transfer, and to have a higher involvement of the MHSs and local stakeholders.
It doesn't mean poor, and it doesn't mean low cost. I think that's important to tell you. Many thanks for that. It's about effectivity. So many thanks. Now we move to Miguel Polo Sebellan, the president of the Hydrographic Confederation del Júcar from the Ministry for Ecological Transition and Demographic Challenge, Spain. You have the floor.
The pointer was given to him? Yeah.
Sí, gracias.
Yes, thank you. Well, in this presentation, I'm going to speak briefly about improvements in the management of transboundary basins between Spain and Portugal. Basically, I'm going to speak about two words: need to improve dialogue and need to improve the sharing of information. On dialogue, since 2020, because of non-compliance with the convention, we have monthly monitoring meetings every month between Spain and Portugal to try to monitor compliance with the convention. Now, there is a website here which helps make the information transparent. We have follow-up reports. We're working at reviewing indicators and those that are connected to achieving the goals of the convention. And we're also working on coordinating the plans for managing water resources. And above all, we're trying to help improve the information sharing system in real time. We want to have joint hydrological plans between Spain and Portugal. And in this information improvement effort, well, here I'm showing you a snapshot of what will be presented in Spain by the third Deputy Minister for Ecological Transformation in Spain. She's going to present the National Observatory for Water, and this is a platform which gathers a lot of information. Sorry, I don't think I have the right slide up, but this platform provides information on water in real time. So the capacity of the water in the rivers, piezometers, the level of reservoirs, and it also includes weather data, rainfall from the Spanish Weather Agency. We also have the weather forecast up there, weather models, warnings. It also includes information from Copernicus and the FS warnings. So in addition to providing this information in real time, you can also look at historical data. So as I said, this is going to be presented on Thursday, the 7th of May in Spain by the Deputy Minister, and it'll be up and running soon. This is a great leap forward in terms of information sharing in real time. Here, obviously, you see information from the whole of Spain, but this is also available in the transboundary basin areas, for example, between Spain and Portugal. And I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
It's an excellent solution and a privilege for us to learn this 2 days before the others. So many thanks for that. Now let's move to Daniel Odermatt. He's group leader of the Aquatic Remote Sensing at the AVAG, the institution in Switzerland on water management, water quality, and also coming from a former private company as well, right? Okay, you have practical experience there. You have the word, Daniel.
Thank you, Dominic. So my department performs research on surface waters, mostly lakes, using all available tools and technologies. And with this first slide, I want to show you the complementarity of three perspectives. On one hand, the in situ measurements that we can take on the lake, in the center remote sensing that gives us a spatially resolved and comprehensive picture, but no vertical resolution. And on the right side, the full understanding and depiction of processes, but of course, with limitations when it comes to the truth or the accuracy that we want to monitor. I want to exemplify the combination of these three tools based on an algae bloom in Lake Geneva in 2021, which you see here on the large satellite image, which was very intensive. It was a taxon of golden algae that hasn't occurred in the lake since the 1990s. And all of a sudden in September 2021, it was there. We have very limited in situ measurements from the time. We do have a platform, a unique platform or a unique infrastructure for lake research, which you can see in the photo on the top left. It's called Lexplore, and it's equipped with dozens of sensors. Most of them are being tested because we use it to evaluate modern technology. It's too expensive, it's too versatile and too complex to be reproduced and transferred for upscaling in a monitoring context. But it's really an opportunity to test different tools for monitoring. We have tried smaller moorings. We have scaled down things that we have tested on the Lexplore platform first. And one of the devices that we use a lot for remote sensing comparisons is a spectrophotometer that is on a profiler next to the platform. And you can see in the figure below how it has recorded this proxy of biomass very shortly during just one ascent, which happens twice a day. So we do have an idea of the intensity on the ground, but due to the patchiness of the bloom, this spatially isolated sample is of very limited significance. So what we also have, and I have to restart in the bottom left, you can see an animation of 3D model simulations, which are performed for this very week of the distribution of the phytoplankton bloom. With this tool, we managed to reproduce the origin of this phytoplankton bloom. We have inserted particles at the southern shore and then run the model for consecutive days, and we see how the spatial patterns are reproduced, meaning that the particles actually originated from this location. Then, of course, we have a long-term context, which is prepared from Earth observation satellite data. The time series in the bottom right is from Sentinel-3 imagery, which is more accurate than the Sentinel-2 shown in the big picture. So from this, we see that this bloom was indeed very high, that it was about a week long altogether. And of course, we can also put it into context with other lakes that we observe with Sentinel-3. Finally, we do have photos from our research partners on the French side of the lake, which is shown in this brownish photo. We also, since 2 years, have a big citizen science activity on Lake Geneva, where we obtain on average 10 measurements of water transparency from the lake, which is also proven to be a very, very powerful means to interpret small-scale and short-lived dynamics on the lake. All these tools and information sources we collect and distribute in a portal called alplakes.iavac.ch. It currently operates for the entire alpine space, so from France to Slovenia, all countries that share an edge of the Alps. We have 70 lakes from which we provide daily Earth observation data from Sentinel-3. We have about 20 lakes with three-dimensional model simulations. We have almost 200 lakes with one-dimensional temperature and current and oxygen simulations. And we are adding, as we perform additional research activities, more tools to this platform. This is all open source. It can be adapted for any test site. It's way more transferable, way more cost efficient than transferring an infrastructure like Lexplore would be. And for us, it has also been a fundamental tool to enter a dialogue with potential users, many of them on the French side of the lake, in the French-speaking part of Switzerland. So this tool has allowed us to cross many barriers in communication. Thank you for your attention.
Many thanks, Daniel. So a very good example of combining satellite in situ, citizen science, and modeling. I think that's to be followed. Many thanks. I just noticed we haven't given any upload to any of you, so sorry for that. Let's do a round after. And now we move to giving the floor to Daniela Anguilleri from the JRC, the Joint Research Center from the European Commission. Again, talking about the lake. Daniela, you have the floor.
Good morning, everyone. I work at the Joint Research Center of the European Commission, and we do have many projects under the frame of the Team Europe initiatives for transboundary water management. And today I will present you some activities we've been doing on the Lake Tanganyika. Currently, we do have a project on the lake in collaboration with the Lake Tanganyika Authority. So among the activities that we are conducting is the water level monitoring of the lake. And this is because from an initial discussion with the Lake Tanganyika Authority, where we try to understand what the priorities were for them on the entire basin area. Coastal flooding was one of them because floods have been increased in along the lake shores everywhere. On the lake in the last years. So how do we tackle this problem of understanding coastal flooding dynamics and the reasons for this increased phenomena? So the Lake Tanganyika is the longest of the African Great Lakes and has a surface of 32,900 square kilometers. So it's evident that it cannot be monitored extensively and constantly on the ground, especially because, as it was mentioned in the previous session, some of the countries do have like limited resources to perform monitoring. So what we did is to basically rely on remote sensing, which is the only practical way to obtain spatially distributed records of the lake level and surface. So we adopted Sentinel-1 SAR images combined with advanced statistical analysis to understand the shoreline changes along the lake, identify the main flood-prone areas, and understand, in general, water surface dynamics. So this is an example of the results we obtained. So a change detection from 2017 to 2024. And as an example, I'm showing here the results on the northern part of the lake, but we sampled 22 coasts of interest along the entire lake shores. So basically what you see here is a pixel-based detection analysis where water surface increase in this period is shown in blue, while decrease is shown in red. So if we zoom into the coast that we sampled, we can recognize also some specific patterns. So for example, in the panel C, you can see some red spots, and these are coastal protection structures that were built in the harbor of Uvira for protecting against floods. Again, in the second panel, panel D, there are new settlements along with some increased flows along the coast. And in panel C, which is extensively blue, is the increased floods in the Ruzizi wetland. So this is just an example to show you what can be done and the results that we share with the Lake Tanganyika Authority and what are the implications for transboundary basin. Well, first of all, it has been said already, remote sensing data is open access data accessible by all riparian states, and this can improve like trust and data sharing within the neighboring countries, and it's compatible with additional data sets. For example, the SWOT mission, which is giving high resolution water surface level that we are exploring to understand what are the reasons for this increased flooding. And then it covered a vast extent, so remote sensing of the lake, and substitute for a comprehensive field campaign, which is not feasible in this context. So it can foster also transboundary collaboration, for example, by establishing a network of ad hoc water level gauging stations in identified hotspots. And finally, it can improve spatial planning of inhabited coastal areas and expand policies, for example, for no-build zone along the flood-prone areas in the shoreline. Thank you.
hydrology with the geomorphology and the impact on wetlands and land use. I think that's a very good example. Many thanks for this. Let's now give the floor to Fetizani Ramusia from the Department of Water and Sanitation of South Africa.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to present on the Tulikaro Transboundary Aquifer. It was a pilot real-time monitoring network for groundwater in the area. So I'm from the Department of Water and Sanitation in South Africa. I work with the geological monitoring and assessment activities. So if you look on here, on my far right here, you've got the setup of the Tulikaro. It's mostly shared by 3 states, which is South Africa, Zimbabwe, as well as Botswana. So on the pictures there, you will see we needed some boreholes and also the equipment like the near real-time equipment so that we can pilot this. This was as a result of the work which was done by IMI in terms of the diagnostic assessment in the area for the Tulikaro, where one of the gap was that we need to enhance groundwater monitoring to understand the aquifer functioning in the area. So on that, what we did, we installed this near real-time system where we had 1 in South Africa and 3 in Botswana, and in Zimbabwe we had nothing. And then what we intended was to transmit data at every 15 minutes on a daily basis so that we can share it through a server. But what we encountered is that in some of the areas, due to the remote nature of the areas there, you find that the network systems or signals were very too weak to a point where you could not transmit data at the end of the day. So the intention to get data transmitting to the server and then we access all of us as member states was then defeated on that basis. Then we resorted to manual downloading of the data where we expected to align with our normal monitoring programs in the areas where we sent teams to go and download manually with the intention to put data on our in-country database, which is working. However, due to the fact that for you to get that data now, you need to have to go through diplomatic channels of requesting data through letters to the member states, then it also still defeats the other challenge, the other point of having a near real-time access to the data so that we can manage and understand the aquifer system in the area. And one other thing that when we're installing this, we realized that because it needed some external antenna system to be able to transmit, we were running a risk of vandalism because it's just in the open, so people could just go and vandalize the whole system, and then you end up not having anything. So we then decided to go back to some of the boreholes to be using manual system. So currently, if you look at it from the whole thing, the key barrier, if you look at it, is not necessarily that we cannot install and do anything or buy equipment, but mainly it also goes to the issue of institution. It's not necessarily the technical aspect, where now you have to write letters to the member states to request data, and sometimes you don't get that data in time. And as member states, then we needed to have an access and understanding of this aquifer system. So we need to have the common online platform. We know in terms of the SADC GMI, we have got the GIP, which is an information portal where we can use that. And then we can have instant access to all these data sets, but we are only dependent on going to a manual system where we have to load data on the system and share amongst ourselves. So if we can maybe sort out some technical aspects there, we sort out maybe the network providers agreements to get data constantly flowing, or use maybe new technologies like remote sensing and non-contact system like radar. I think we can improve in terms of data flow amongst the member states. Because honestly, if we look at it from the whole process that we've gone through, the main thing is you need to get data flowing in between the member states so that we can share and manage that aquifer system. So that's the most important lesson learned there, that we install the hardware, but the hard part is to have data flowing across the member states freely. And then we needed maybe a well-structured institution to help us. So what we have done currently, we have been involved in some project through the SADC GMI, as we indicated there. From the map on your top there, we are trying to update and upgrade this network to a point where we now prioritize the aquifer units so that we can see how best can we extract and collect data from these systems to get it into the a sharing platform that we can share amongst ourselves. I think that's what I can say at this stage. Thank you very much.
It's very useful to see what's happened on the ground and to see all the technical issues you're facing. I mean, you, not only your country, but so many countries, because that's the starting point on all we're discussing here. So that's quite important. Many thanks for that. Now we can move to Claire Williams from Earthwatch Europe, and I see Stuart as well. Stuart, would you like? No, nothing. Okay, very good. So Claire, you have the floor, please.
Thank you very much. So my name is Claire Williams and I work at Earthwatch Europe. We're an environmental charity with science at our heart. We work largely on citizen science research projects across a range of different environmental topics to connect people with nature and give them the tools that they need to advocate and protect nature. And over the last few years, we've been working with UN GEMS Water very closely in sort of expanding citizen science in countries where they don't have a huge amount of data. We're also co-chairs of the citizen science work stream for the World Water Quality Alliance working group around SDG 632. And the work that we're doing together is supported by GIZ. So Earthwatch runs the citizen science project called Freshwater Watch, which is a global citizen science water quality monitoring methodology and data platform. So the methodology is very simple to enable it to be spread throughout. And really, citizen science is all about anyone being able to gather robust data. And so here you can see a workshop in Tanzania where the gentleman in orange, Rochi, had been trained by our team online to then go ahead and train other people in the simple methodology. So training is a really important part of it. The citizen scientists then go out and practice together, and from then on they monitor on a monthly basis. So here you can just about see they're pouring water into a Secchi tube. It has a checkered disc at the bottom and you can understand the turbidity from that. We also have test tubes with reagent in them looking at nitrates and phosphates. And alongside this, the citizen scientists also gather lots of observational data as well. And they then use smartphones to upload this via an app, the Survey 123 app, onto the Esri platform that we have adapted for this. And they get instant feedback in the app about what their results tell them, whether the water is poor, moderate, or good quality data. In the Mara, where this map has shown, we're working with the Water Resources Authority and the Lake Victoria Basin Water Board and the Ministry of Water in Tanzania. You can see that the citizen scientists have been able to gather a huge amount of data. There's over 1,000 data points there. You can't see them all because some of them are on top of each other because they're monitoring the same locations. All of this data is open and complies with the FAIR principles. So it's findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. We have an API. And so anyone can go ahead and download this data if you have a look at the website on the QR code there. As I say, they get the instant feedback, but then we also create an infographic and provide feedback to the communities who are helping us to gather this data. There is a huge amount of quality control that goes into this as well. So as well as the robust training that they receive, with also some of the questions that they're asked helps us to understand, whether or not they're giving accurate information. So if they've said the water is clear, for example, but then have a really high turbidity rating, we know that maybe they need to just double check something. So we will go back to them and double check that as well. So I just have a quote to read from the Water Resources Authority in Kenya. Fred Nongesa, the Water Quality and Pollution Control Manager, really appreciates this data and says that Kenya government state agency as WRA is mandated to regulate the sustainable management and use of water resources. Transboundary waters pose unique management and use challenges due to environmental and political diversities. The Mara River Basin is a typical transboundary case encompassing the Masai Mara in Kenya and the Serengeti in Tanzania. In collaboration with development partners, Gems Water, Earthwatch, IWWQA, amongst others, using citizen science approach, WRA is coordinating the water resource user associations in Kenya and the water resources associations in Tanzania, those communities and regional stakeholders in enhancing water resource conservation and protection through water quality monitoring via data collection and analysis, knowledge sharing and ecosystem management. Integrating citizen science data with regulatory monitoring helps to strengthen community harmony, close data and information gaps, and supports the SDG 632 reporting. It helps to guide decision-making and advance sustainable cooperative water resources management across Kenya and Tanzania's transboundary ecosystems. Thank you.
In the era of artificial intelligence, I still believe in collective intelligence, and that's a very good example. So many thanks for that. We move to the next presentation before a discussion from Diego Herrera, Senior Legal Officer, Environmental Law Team at the IUCN. Diego, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And just reflecting on something that was already discussed by some speakers, that data is already there, but the governance mechanisms are still weak. And we are going to discuss now, I'm going to briefly share with you some of our insights, our key messages from IUCN in implementation of bridge in South America and specifically on the Lake Titicaca, where you really see these different levels of governance trying to strengthen how data is being shared between countries and can help to local communities and specifically vulnerable communities. We are going now to the Lake Titicaca. As you know, it's shared between Bolivia and Paraguay, Bolivia and Peru, sorry. Something very interesting is that the population of nearly 3 million people here in this lake basin is composed by indigenous peoples, the Aymaras, the Quechuas, and the Uros. And what is important in the case of the Lake Titicaca for this population is that the lake is something sacred for them. It has a deeper meaning. They consider even it as part of their own community, the community composed by people, by nature, and by their divinities, by their gods. There are different challenges here in this lake, mainly pollution from mining activities and treated waste waters. And something that is also important to emphasize here is the socioeconomic condition in this area. We are talking here about some of the poorest regions, not only in the Andes, but perhaps in South America, with a lot of needs, lack of access to education, to health, and to different different conditions that would enable them a better livelihoods. As part of the solutions that IUCN through REACH we have made is to try to empower indigenous women, these communities, through specifically strengthen the role of indigenous women in the protection of the Lake Titicaca, and this through using an approach that is their traditional view or their traditional community work called Minga. Minga, for the colleagues who come from the Andean countries, is community work, something that is done in a community in order to do something good. For instance, in terms of water, can be the construction of building a bridge, cleaning the shores of a lake, cleaning the shores of a river. And on the basis of this concept, we have started a Minga in terms of monitoring what's the quality of water of the lake, and also trying to engage these different communities and understand and realize what are the challenges affecting them, and also how they can contribute so that the ministers of environment, ministers of water, ministers of foreign affairs can take better decisions for this shared resource. And in this sense, here you can see some images of drones and local communities taking sample of the water. And this is, as the colleagues from that already presented in the MARA, these are actions that engage, that strengthen the participation of these communities, local people, but also they see and they realize what is their real contribution, not only to say we participate, but we really see a tangible contribution to negotiations, to the knowledge in this lake. And in this sense, women, indigenous women in this lake, they have been very active. They have organized themselves as well. There are now associations that are being recognized by the government, local associations, where they really have specific mandates on how data is being collected, managed, and shared together with local municipalities through different ministries, and they really see how their efforts are being transformed in policies, in transboundary agendas. Thank you very much, colleagues.
Important again that this is those linkages between technology, legal aspects, societal aspects, and even spirituality. So I think that was great. I think you all now deserve a round of applause for all of us. Thank you. Something like 20 minutes left. I would like to hear from you if you have any questions, comment, additional information you'd like to share with us. Please raise the flag. Happy to hear from you. And it's always difficult to ask the first question. Yes, from Togo, please.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Modérateur.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I am Koleni. I'm the Director of the Water Management in Togo in our agency, and I would like to thank and congratulate each of the speakers during this session. Thank you for the case studies that you've presented. I am interested particularly in Daniela's presentation on telemonitoring technologies. Togo and Benin jointly formulated an approach on the Mono Basin, and I would like to ask for this technology to be provided for us too, because we are aware of the same problems and we would benefit from this technology. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. So the technology, I mean, it's based on remote sensing data, so open access data. So it's fully transferable to other lakes. So I'll be happy to get in contact with you later and share contacts so that we can further continue discussing this. Thank you.
Share, please. Yes, Resha, you have the floor. Thank you.
Good morning. We also would like to thank all of the participants for their very varied presentations. We have a question about the Tulikara transboundary water body. Apologies for pronunciation. You said that there has been drilling and a frequency of every 15 minutes. how many indicators and what indicators we used were for measuring in each of those drilled wells. Thank you.
So that was the question for Fedizani, is that correct? Yes. So please take the floor.
Thank you very much for the question. We were focusing on groundwater levels. And the data gas well was able to take electrical conductivity and temperature. And the boreholes actually that we used, we did not drill a single borehole. We used the existing monitoring boreholes within each member states. So 3 boreholes in Botswana, they were existing boreholes, and 1 in South Africa is existing borehole meant for water level monitoring. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further question from the floor? Zimbabwe, please.
Thank you, Chair. My question is on the tool that has been developed for the Geneva Lake. It's quite interesting to us because as Zimbabwe, we experienced an algal bloom on the Limpopo River last year, and it was difficult to track the source. We had to do in situ sampling to actually determine the source.
for, in this case, Bolivia and Peru, to provide the financial resources, the technical capacities as well, that are not enough through the project that we are doing, because we are talking about different communities, but they should be able to ensure that through their national governments, the Lake Titicaca Authority as well, which is at the end of the day, the entity, the transboundary entity in charge of this, to ensure that this process continue and that the local communities, indigenous people, they are still engaged. They take, they are part of the decision making in this lake. And also, just a very fundamental point is that we are talking here also about rights, the rights of these communities, right to access information, to participate, and also for themselves to be aware of what is the state of the waters in the lake, because at one point they would even need to access justice in the case that there are specific problems that are affecting their health, their communities, their agriculture. Thank you very much.
Many thanks. Any other question from Malawi, please?
Yes, I had a question in particular for the EOAG presenter, specifically on in situ citizen science. Well, this question can also be extended to the Earthwatch, of course. I'm interested in the sustainability of the system, the citizen science system, because in one sense, in our country, what we face, some of the issues that we face is that even after we have trained some of the community members to be able to collect certain data, they don't see any much benefit to themselves sometimes due to the, sometimes they might expect compensation for the work that they're doing in terms of collecting data for the country, etc. So my question is to ask, how exactly do you sustain this long term in terms of, should I say, motivating the community members to actually collect that kind of data that would be helpful for your systems? Thank you.
So Daniel, and maybe Claire after, if possible. Yeah. Okay, thanks. Daniel, please.
Sure. So my experience is really limited to 2 years of a project and one single lake, a lake that has a lot of retired people with a lot of spare time in its region. And these people are really happy to collect such measurements. As a matter of fact, they were disappointed after 2 years that one of their new hobbies is going away, and they were asking repeatedly for, follow-up activities. And all they need from us is to have an occasional event where we can report back on findings, where they can exchange among themselves. So in this sense, we have a very specific situation, which is quite favorable for citizen science. But I'm sure Claire has a somewhat more universal view on these things.
Yes, it can be a challenge in different locations to keep people motivated and engaged. So what we tend to do is make sure that the wider community is trained. It's not just one person for each data point. So we would sort of build redundancy into the situation and have a number of citizen scientists trained up so that they can support each other. In some of the work that we do across Africa, some of the citizen scientists do receive a small stipend to cover the costs of their data that they need to be able to upload the work, but mostly the citizen scientists are really part of the community and enthusiastic about the opportunity to do something quite scientific and contribute to the government. So in Malawi, for example, we do have some projects in Mazimba and Milanji and Lilongwe, and the citizen scientists there, have receive sort of benefits from being part of the project because they are very linked up with the ministry who are utilizing the data. So there is sort of a general motivation, I would say. towards that.
There are many questions around applicability, sustainability, upscale to other regions. So I'd like to go back to the panel for each of you to answer a very simple question. What's missing? And I mean, if you want to upscale, if you want to have things in the longer term, what is the enabler? Could be one word. And what is the main barrier? So you can have one word each or a short sentence, but keep it short, please. Can I start? Are you ready, Daniel? Any of you would like to start? So we will all answer. So please, yes.
Yeah, okay. As I said before during my presentation and in my reply to Togo, the methods that we are using and the data source, it's really easy to upscale and to apply to other situations. So I think that in our case, what really matters is to have connection with somebody on the ground. In our case, we are working with river basin authorities. But also local authorities to really, on the one hand, validate what we can see from the space, and on the other hand, try to make the next steps. And so try to understand how to use this information that we can have from remote sensing imagery to do something on the ground that helps the local communities and helps water managers.
Next. Salvador first, and then you, Daniel.
Thank you.